Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope that everybody's having Ava, good morning. Hey, everyone. And it's very unfair for me to say good morning because we've got a really globally distributed group. Good afternoon if you're someplace where it's a very humane time. And hopefully it's not the middle of the night for you. If you're trying to join us and it's well late for you, go to bed, my love. You can watch this later. We'll have it available in a video. And we're starting the second week, which is pretty exciting. Last week, we got sort of introduced to the idea of HTML. And can anybody remember what HTML is for? It's a hard question, isn't it? What is it for? If we remember correctly, HTML is the language we use to put content on our page. That sort of vibes, yeah? And we learned about some CSS as well. Yeah. So we started doing CSS, and CSS is the language we use to set the style rules for our websites. Today, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to start learning some more HTML. All super fine, all super mellow. And we're going to learn the HTML we need to do. Simply's got it right when we say, oh, HTML stands for, let me grab this, hypertext markup language. Yeah, the language we use to put something on a website. Cool. And today we're going to do some more HTML. And the HTML we're going to do today is about forms. So, how to take user generated information and send it back so you can do something with it later. Super. Right now, what we're really going to learn is just sort of the HTML for the forms. Whenever we're abstracting something away, I like to give you a hint about what we're hiding. Ooh. And what I'm really excited about is to show what we've done so far. I'm cheating here, so it'll say 29 out of 94, just because it's only showing here the ones we did together. But what we've done together so far are, and don't worry if you've fallen behind, everything's fine. There's going to be tons of time to get caught up. We've learned about HTML. Remember, we built this cat photo app together. That was pretty chill. We learned basic CSS. We built that cafe menu. I thought that was especially cute. And what we did last week was we made some CSS art. Yeah. What we're going to do today is we're going to learn HTML forms by building a registration form. And this doesn't really cover the back end. Remember, we talked about front and back end a little bit during the office hours on Saturday. Again, no problem if you didn't make it. It's optional. Everything's fine. And the front end is really the stuff we can see on our website. Yeah. So our HTML, our CSS. And the back end is stuff that does stuff like servers. So we're not going to talk about servers, I don't think. So we're just going to pretend that this information will magically get into your database because we're not going to talk about databases yet either, are we? So we're going to make this registration form. All right. First name, last name, email, password. And again, this is a little bit of an abstraction. In the real world, you probably want some kind of layer of security when you're passing passwords back and forth. Yeah. You'd be able to say whether it's personal business. We're going to do a radio button. We're going to do a checkbox. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 text fields, 2 radio buttons, 1 checkbox, an upload, a drop down, another checkbox, and then a longer text box. Ooh, this is going to be rough. Let's go ahead and try this. We're starting an HTML file, and what we remember is that when we first start an HTML file, let me make it caps. It'll work in lowercase, but the convention is caps. We tell our browser that the document type we're using is HTML. Super chill. And the first couple of steps are kind of me cheating. You already know these things, right? Yeah. So we're going to just keep hustling along. Wait. Oh, it's ask. This is step 2. I'm rubbish. This is saying, hey, please also make me an HTML tag. I've put both these on the same line, but I conceptually don't like that. They'd never be on the same line in the wild. Let's spread them out a little. Everything's still fine. We're going to start some head and body tags inside our HTML. So open our head up, close our head up. Very chill. I'm going to open our body tag up. And can anybody remember what goes in the head and what goes in the body? Yeah, if you can yell at me in the chat, title goes in the head. I'm cheating. I've told you the title goes in the head. So this is just a reminder that Free Code Camp is really completely separate from the boot camp. The boot camp is hosted by the boot camp is hosted by Class Central. Thank you very much, Class Central. And Ramon and I do these just sort of for fun, eh? Whereas Free Code Camp is a separate nonprofit. If you have the money and if you want to give to them, it's a really solid thing to do. But I give on my other account, I promise. But if you don't have the money right now, don't you spend money on something you don't have. So, ooh, Herp is pointing out, you know what we put in our head tag? We put metadata in our head tag. Heck yeah. So we're going to do a couple things really fast. We're going to add our title. It's going to be super mellow. And this feels like cheating, isn't it? Because we're not even really doing the forms yet. We're just sort of reviewing. So I think I might skip ahead in a minute. Or let's go super fast. That's going to be a little bit easier, isn't it? Rel equals, and I'm just going super fast because we've done this in past ones. Yeah. I'm closing it there because some folks have seen some problems. You could do it either way, but very strictly, you don't have to have the self-closing tag in a link anymore. Or you don't have to have the slash in a self-closing tag anymore. Link rel is the style sheet. And type. And what we're doing right here is we're linking to our CSS file. Yeah. Type is text CSS. That's super chill as well. And the ref. So where we're actually sending this. Oh, I love this. Yeah. So the stuff we're actually going to see that's going to be visible is all going to be hanging out in the body section. Let's hurry up and get to that because, oh, heck, a little bit more important, isn't it? So what we're actually linking to is style CSS. And within the body, we're going to make a heading. So we're going to make an H1 because I think this is the most important heading on this page we're messing with. Yeah. And we want it to say registration form because programmers are lazy. I mean, people deep down, we're energy efficient, aren't we? I'm going to Control C and Control V that to paste it. And now we've got a big heading here that says, hey, this is a registration form. All chill. Everything's chill. We're going to make a paragraph under it. And this paragraph is really just going to tell our users to fill this out. Hey, please fill this out. Because I'm lazy, we're going to copy and paste. There's nothing wrong with being lazy. You know, I've been lazy my whole life and it's worked out really well. So check out that we've got two files now. So here we've got our index, which is showing us our HTML. Goodbye, index. Here we've got our CSS, which is going to make our styles. And over here we've got our preview. So what it sort of looks like. We're going to use a CSS selector for body. And for CSS selectors, if I was doing H1 or a paragraph, that would set the rules for every single H1 or paragraph. But here, I think we're only ever going to have one body. So by default, it's going to set it for everything. We're going to spell things wrong. We're going to set that to a width of 100%. Make it as wide as the viewport. And then we're going to add our semicolon because we're going down to a new line. And our height is going to be set to 100 VH. Ooh, we've been getting a lot of really good questions about units in CSS. I'm just going to grab a quick link to kick over here because it's really easy to see every time you see a new unit. So we've seen 100% here for the width, and we're like, well, okay, I can kind of get what 100% is going to mean. Make it as big as you can. Cool. A giraffe here after my heart. I was going to say, what do we think this is? And you've jumped way ahead. You're like, that's 100% of the view height. And I said, you are absolutely impossibly correct. Sadiq's got the same thing. So VH is view height. Y'all are way ahead of me. So the MDN link I've dropped in there is just really good for giving you a list of all the different types of possible units we could use to measure. And that's going to keep us chill. We're just not going to freak out when we see a new one. We're on to step 8. So now we're going to get rid of the horizontal scroll bar. So here, you can barely see it, a little horizontal scroll bar. We're going to set the body default margin just because our browser adds one for us. We're going to get rid of that. We say, well, margin. Instead of using the default, I want to set my own. I want to set that to 0. Ooh. And you see automatically, I can't scroll over here anymore. That little sidebar is gone. Everything is chill. Cool. Let's go ahead. And you say, oh, we're doing a lot of CSS, but you said we're going to do we're going to hustle through the CSS. Our background color, just because I think you did this in your other lessons. Ooh, look at me trying to do the wrong thing. Monday morning for me, Monday afternoon for many of you. Background color. And I'm going to copy this. So 1B, 1B32. What do we think that's going to look like? So we've used those hash codes that we learned last time, or we learned when we did our CSS markers. Yeah. And now we're going to change the text color. Right now, we've got sort of a very, very dark blue, midnight blue. Ooh, I'm rubbish at colors. It looks very black, doesn't it? We've got a very, very dark background plus black text, and I cannot see a fool thing. It may be my old lady eyes. So we're going to go ahead and set this color to our hex code of F5, F6, F7. What's that going to look like? Okay, so it's like a very gently off-white. That flows, doesn't it? That feels all right. We can see. We're going to keep hustling through our CSS super fast. And now we're back to our HTML. So we're going to start with making a form. And you say, oh, that's so scary. I've never done a form before, but it's just a form. And it says, hey, y'all, our form is going to have an action attribute. And when we set an attribute, I'm going to go ahead and close it here. And you know what? I think form elements are not self-closing. I'm going to want to close that, yeah? So our form element opens here, closes here. And it's got an action attribute. Ooh, so what's it going to do? And our action attribute is targeting this link. What do we think this means when it says the action targets this link? I'm going to be mean and leave this as a question. What do we think this means? I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you. What do we do when we don't know something? We can ask an adult. And saying an adult sounds very patronizing. Y'all are grown as well. You can ask somebody who's more experienced. There we are. It sounds better than an adult. You can get weird. You can experiment to figure it out on your own. Or you can look it up. So here, and MDN is one of my favorite places to look up stuff for the web. And this is going to give us not just how this is formed, but also it's going to tell us these attributes. Yeah? Action. And the action is going to be the URL, the link that processes the form submission. So where does this information go when I push submit? It goes, oh, is the screen blurry? Let me know if y'all are having a difficult time seeing. Yeah, sorry about that. So when we start our form, yeah, Irvin, absolutely after my own heart. It specifies where the form data is gonna go after submission. So when you put all your information in a form, it's gotta go somewhere. And this link is where that's gonna go. Yeah. We're gonna check our code, and it says everything's fine. And that's what you want to hear on a Monday, isn't it? That everything's chill. So we're gonna have 3 different sections in our form. And we know that when we create sections on our website, we can use the section tag. But here, we're going to have field set elements within the form. Ooh. And let me go ahead and get MDN field set, just so I can go ahead and keep linking you to what's going on here. A field set, this is not going to surprise you, is it? So I'm saying what we're going to do is we're going to make 3 separate sections. Field set is going to feel a lot like using the section tag or like using a div, but it just lives inside a form instead. You think, I don't think field set is self-closing, do you? Let's make 3 of these, hasn't it? 1, 2. Yeah. Y'all are so patient. Even how we spell field? Everything's a little bit surreal before coffee, isn't it? Ooh, heck. 3 of those. And I feel kind of confident because this is all it wants from us so far. And we see that we've got these 3 sections that popped up as we typed them. I've had some learners mention, like, oh, do you know what? The beta feels a little bit harder in some spaces because we're working from the beta curriculum, right? And I think part of the problem, part of the challenge is that here it doesn't give you as much sort of additional information. It says, hey, make a field set form. And it sort of leaves you to say, or make a field set element. And say, what's a field set? How does it, do I have to close it? So really it kind of gives you that little push to say, okay, I'm not giving you as much support as I usually would. You're going to have to look things up sometimes to understand what's going on. And as a very mean teacher, I quite like that, huh? It's like, oh, get used to looking things up. Yeah. So our field set is going to hold name, email, and password fields. So we're going to add 4 label elements. This first field set. 1 label element. Let's go ahead and close that as well. Do you know what? Somebody who's after my own heart. Perfect. Folks are saying, Jess, why are you typing this out? My coding adventure is saying, just copy it, just copy it. And Florin is such a sweetie as well. You say, you know what, you can just copy it. And you've given me 2 different ways to copy it, but I'm going to go the very old school way because I'm very old school. I'm going to copy. We wanted 4 of these, didn't we? 2, 3. You might say, well, Jess. Oh, heck. Jess, you're completely rubbish. I've forgotten to, these aren't closing. Let's add our little backslashes to the closings. Yeah, Alt-Shift-Arrow is a way to do this. Yeah. So what we've got here is 1, open and close, 2, open and close. Here we open, here we close. Here, that seems like 4 of them. That seems chill. Let's keep hustling. Yeah. Now, we're going to add the following text to our label elements. And this is going to feel kind of familiar, isn't it? Because we've seen using alt text with a link. Oh, using anchor text with a link. Where we put that text is between our opening and closing element. I think we could do that here too, yeah? It feels like that might be how this works. And you say, well, Jess, computer science is very precise. Are you really out here doing web development based on feelings? Yes. We're going to control copy, see, and paste everything. And see, what? Oh, Well, we've got different sections. We've got these different boxes. Can anybody tell me why all of these are going in the same box? And it makes a little bit more sense if we look at the code here, doesn't it? So we've got our field set. Oh, I bet this is it, isn't it? Which designates our sections. And then all 4 of these labels are in the first field set, or in that first section. That's doable. Cindy, They're inline elements. I love that. And do we remember what that means? So inline elements will boop, 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 all come out in the same line. And what's the opposite of that? What do we call the elements that come in on a new line? So we've got inline elements and ba, ba, ba. Perfect. Absolutely gorgeous. So when we put down an HTML element, it's either inline or block. Ooh, but what if I've got an inline element and I want it on a different row? Or what if I've got a block element and I want it on the same line? I bet later on in this course, we're going to learn about how to override the sort of default behavior of our elements. It's going to be great. I'm such a nerd where I'm like, we're going to learn how to override I mean, that's probably not y'all's idea of a fun time, is it? Irvin, perfect. You say, I've actually looked ahead, and the way we do that is we change the display property in CSS. Nice. So label elements are inline by default, so they appear on the same line as the text they're labeling. To make them appear on separate lines, we're going to add the display block. Irvin absolutely saw the future for us. So let's go ahead and say, we're going to set a selector. So we're going to set rules for all of our label elements. Yeah. We don't put a dot, we don't put a hash, just label all of our labels. And what we're going to do here is say, well, I want the display for this. Right now, the display is inline because that's a default. I want it to be block. And as soon as we write block, CSS says, I absolutely know what you're talking about. And let's go ahead and give them a little bit of margin. Let's give them some breathing room from each other. 0.5 rem. 0? Oh, we've got that space in here. That feels okay. Everything feels chill. And what I really like about the beta is we sort of jump back and forth between the HTML and CSS in a way that feels supernatural. I mean, extremely natural, not supernatural. It doesn't really feel like a ghost, does it? So we're going to put an input element inside each label. Okay. We're going to put our input after the label. So after the label text, and we're going to include a space after the colon. So space. Yeah. And now we're going to put that feels okay. And because I'm lazy, I'm going to copy that and I'm going to copy the space because I can see a future where I forget that. And that's just it's not on, is it? And you see, as soon as we did that, we got text boxes for all of these. But we saw in the preview that some of these are going to be text boxes. Some of them are going to be radio buttons, the ones where you can only select one. Very cool. Some of these are going to be check boxes. And some of these are going to be drop downs, which is all very exciting. So what do we call the behavior which is sort of built in? So we haven't said that this input is a text box, but by default, this is a text box. And default just means, oh, if you don't tell me something specific to do, this is my automatically built-in behavior. The same way that a label by default is an inline element. We changed that. And the way we change the default type of form element is using the type attribute. This is chill. So the first two type elements are going to stay text boxes, but we're still going to put those in because, is input self-closing? Input self-closing. I'm rubbish. I'm low-key rubbish. I'm calmly rubbish. So we're going to specify, even though they're already typed, we're going to specify that these are types. And it'll just because whenever possible, we like to let people know what's going on. This is still text. Cool. Your first name, made of text. That's fine. And really, I know a bunch of you are also taking I'm going to copy and paste this because I'm lazy. I know and a lot of you are also taking the JavaScript course. And I think this sort of previews the idea of data types a little bit. I mean, text isn't a data type. A string is a string, yeah. But really, we're specifying we're taking a thing from the user. What kind of thing are we getting? What type? And emails, yeah, have to have. Emails are text as well, but they make sure you include the @ sign and they make sure you include the dot. And the password type, remember how I said, oh gosh, if we're getting passwords from someone, we want to have at least a little bit of security. And using the password type gives us a little tiny bit of built in security from HTML. We probably want to do some fancy things on the back end if we're taking in passwords, but that's stuff you don't have to worry about quite yet. So here the type is equal to, heck, email. And you see that when I put the type before I finished it, it just sort of went away for a minute, didn't it? So the type is equal to. I left for a second. Like, I don't know what's going on. If is like XSS could be dated. True. We'll talk about that later on though. Does anybody want to look up or guess, or do you know what is XSS? One thing I want to get you super, super comfortable with is there's going to be tons of things in tech where when somebody mentions it, you're like, I've never heard that word. Or what's going on? XSS, yeah, well, it's not quite a password. So that's sort of a concept. It's an activity called cross-site scripting. And that can be a security vulnerability where you, oh gosh, have I typed password wrong? No, that feels okay. Let's check. That's all right. So cross-site scripting is where your forms are vulnerable to an attack. Yeah. So if you we'll learn about those later on. Let's talk about those in Discord just to make sure because it's a really really interesting discussion. I love to preview these especially security discussions, but I also want to get through as much of this as possible. So I'm not fussing at you for bringing this up because it's a really good point. But let's go ahead and chat about this on the forum and let's chat about this in Discord, yeah? Just so folks who aren't with us in real time can take part. I'm going to ask my absolutely brilliant coworker to go ahead and throw up the information for the forum and for the yeah, and you can get to the Discord through there as well. So the first input type of submit is automatically set to submit its nearest form element. Hang on, let me grab a drink. What does this mean? This is a lot, right? This is super technical. So the first input element, and let's break this down real laid back, yeah? The first input element, okay, cool. We've got 4 input elements here. First name, last name, email, pass. When it says first one, it means this first box right here. Oop, heck. And what it's saying here is the first input element with a type of submit is automatically set to submit to its nearest form element. So what it's saying is, hey, the way we're going to submit this is going to default to its parent form. Still weird. But really that means, hey, the action here, we're not going to have to set the action every time. These are all within a parent form. It's going to follow the rules for its parent form. That's chill. We can do this. So we're going to come down to handle the form submission after the last field set element. Okay. Add an input type with the attribute set to submit and the value set to submit. We can do this. Yeah. So we're going to come all the way down. And let's go ahead and make this just a little bit bigger so we can see it. Oh, is that not the way to make it bigger? So what we're going to do is we've got our last field set element after it. So down here on a new line, I'm going to add after the last field set element. So okay, outside of this, I'm going to create a new input. Ooh, I'm going to spell improperly. Right. Somebody's pointing out that this is really hard. Forms are so hard. If you're having a hard time with this, if this is weird conceptually, that is not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. I'm rubbish at forms. Um, like, I say that like I'm good at much of anything else. But it is absolutely okay for this to be hard. So we're going to create another input type. And as soon as we've said input, it says, I know what you want. You want a text box because that's the default. And that's not what we want. So what we're going to do is we're saying, well, our input type here is going to be set to submit. Look at that, just automatically. And what we're going to do is we're setting the value to submit as well. We remember this is self-closing, even though you technically don't need the slash, we're going to add it. What do we think the difference between, because that text went away and came back. What do we think the difference between type and submit is right here? Or what do we think the difference is between type and value right here? So I'm cheating and I've done this before, eh? So I can go ahead and give you a little bit of a spoiler. Here, when we say input type, we're setting the type of field here, the same way we said type email here. Here, the type is a submit button. Cool, 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 cool. And here, what we're doing with value is that's sort of the label on this button. I could say send my answers. It would change it to send my answers. So you might say, why do we say submit twice? And here, just because I want to have a nice, pretty formatted thing that says submit. And this is kind of tricky because you might say, well, why do I need it? The default value is already submit. Well, the default value is already submit, but we like to go ahead and include that just in case. Rajesh, absolutely fantastic. You know what? Type. Oh, heck, I've clicked that at the same time. I'm rubbish. Type specifies the purpose. It's really saying, hey, what kind of a thing is this? And you can't pick anything in the world. You can't say, this is an input type unicorn. It doesn't really exist. Not yet. But you can put anything you want for the value. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions coming in that are sort of general questions. Is it okay to save those for the end just so we can get through as many of the forms as possible? Because these are super hard. We're going to come in and oh, dang, you know what? We've got an input type of submit here. I bet if we looked at the code, check our code would be an input type of submit. We're going to go to our next challenge. So we should be able to submit our phone form. Haha. Oh, literally nothing happens. Oh, heck. Okay, what happens is it says, no, that doesn't work. Stop it. So we've got somebody asking, are we using queries to extract it? We're just learning about HTML forms today. Yeah. So nice, very, very basic stuff, very laid back. Yeah. So we submit the form. Nothing. I mean, something happens. It says, "Hey, that broke. I don't appreciate that it broke." But what we're going to do is we're going to add some more stuff so it doesn't break. That's super chill. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the required attribute to some of the input fields. What do you think the required attribute is going to do? I'm just going to type these in. Hmm. Is that how I do it? Do I just say required? You know what? I never remember how to do forms. And then input. You can see me behind the scenes, like looking this up. Do I just say required? You know what? I'm just going to say required. I'm just going to assume this is how we do it. And if it's not, it's going to come back and fuss at me, isn't it? What do we think this does when I say required? Let's check our code. Nice. It says, and now I'm not going to click on that because that'll show y'all my email. When I submit, it's going to say, absolutely not. I insist that you fill out this field. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Required means that your user has to fill that out before they're allowed to push submit. That way, when they push submit, they say, no, you can't submit this yet. You haven't done perfect. Yeah. And Sunflower's way ahead. They're like, no, you can just put required. It doesn't have to be set to anything. It's chill. Y'all are very patient. Let's go on to the next challenge because this is just going to keep getting harder, isn't it? Certain type attributes come with built-in form validation. So type equals email requires the email be a value of a valid email address. And this isn't quite true, is it? So what the type email is checking, it only cares if you have an @ sign and you have a dot in it. But it doesn't know about top level domains. And we're not going to get too much into top level domains, but can somebody who might know about it, let me know in the chat, what is a top level? What's an example of a top level domain? And what these so you can use services that validate emails. And I want to point out that it says type email requires you use a valid email address. It's not going to check these emails for validity. I just want to, can somebody give me an example of what a top level domain is? And we'll talk about that when we get to it. But we can also add custom validation to the password input element. We could add custom validation to any element. I could say your first name must be at least 3 letters wrong, but that would be a jerk move. A bunch of people have first names that are 2 letters or .com. We're jumping around a little bit. But when we talked about top level domains, those are sort of the domains you can have for a website. .com, I think probably the biggest. .gov for a government one. .org for a nonprofit. You all are so, and sometimes we'll see top level domain, loud keyboard, abbreviated to TLD. And I just wanted to preview that sometimes we see those out in the wild, don't we? .net is one. .net, yeah. So don't require a length for names. That's a jerk move, isn't it? But we are going to go ahead and create a length for passwords just because password rules are super complicated. They're not. So let's talk briefly about password rules, just to be. So longer passwords are generally a bit better. Unique passwords are super important. If you've got a password that you're using for your email, don't also use that for the bank. Just because if that password gets compromised, if somebody finds it, it means they can get into your email, but they can also get into your bank. I really like using a password manager. Sadiq, look at this. You got .com, .gov, .net, .canada, .us, .org. Is that yeah, that makes sense. We're going to say min length attribute. And we set an attribute in HTML that takes a value. So here we've got the required attribute. You don't have to required, you just say required. That's all it needs. Zara perfect.edu is a good one. But the min length, a minimum length, we have to set it to something. We have to pass it a value. And the value here is going to be 8. And this just means our minimum length. So if I try and create a new password that's 2 letters, ooh, look at that, because it's a password, it hides it from me. It won't let me do that. We're going to submit our code. No, don't save my password. Absolutely not. And go on to the next challenge. Yeah, perfect. It's going to be, when we set our minimum character length, it's a minimum of 8 characters. Easy, chill, relaxing. Everything continues to be fine. So, okay. When we have an input field and the type is password, cool. And this is more of those little bits of security we wanted to talk about. Who here is interested in learning more about, or maybe even someday going into, there's a field just of cybersecurity or security. I don't know how many people still say the cyber part. I'm very much a child of the 90s. Who here is interested in security as a field? I confess I'm rubbish at it. Cheerfully rubbish. Yeah. So with the type of password, we can use a pattern attribute to define a regular expression that a password must match to be valid. A regular expression, I think these are super hard. But you're interested in cybersecurity. You know what? The cybersecurity folks online, they've got a whole community, and they tend to be so nice. I'm jealous. You're going to have such a nice time learning about this. A regular expression is like a little tiny program. We're setting some logic rules. And I joke about being bad at CSS and I joke about being bad at design. I am heartbreakingly terrible at regular expressions. They're a whole thing you can learn about more. I would definitely hop on DuckDuckGo, search for regular expression tutorials to start learning more about these because they're really, really good. They're a big part of programming. I see Ramona's in the chat. Ramon, are you all doing regular expressions with the JavaScript course? You see why I don't teach JavaScript. I bet y'all are going to do these. So we're going to add a pattern attribute and we're going to set it to this regular expression. I've previewed that regular expressions are sort of a logical type of programming, but also that I hate them. So what we're going to do is we're just going to copy and paste this and then talk about this. Yeah. Oh, Lego after my own heart. Lego saying, look, I'm a programmer. I mean, Lego hasn't said that they're a great programmer, but we know. And they still struggle with regex. And regex is sort of a cute little shortcut way to say regular expressions, isn't it? I am mumble years into the industry. I'm very old. And I continue to be terrible at these every day. You can be kind of not great at stuff and still get by. It's okay to look. So Ramon is saying, hey, those of you who are also taking the JavaScript course, y'all are going to have to do regular expressions. Yeah, everything is chill. So we're going to come way down to the password and add an input element. Or we're gonna, I've lied. We're gonna come all the way down to the password, find our input element. Here it is. There we got it. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a pattern attribute in here. Pattern. And what we're saying when we set this pattern attribute is, hey, we're very informal, we're very casual with our browser. We're setting this pattern to this regular expression. And here, Ramon, you've already said you're in the chat, so you've got to back me up here. What I think is going on here is that it wants the required pattern says you can use the letters A to Z or A to Z if you're very American. I think it's saying that you can use the numbers 0 through 5, and then it must be 8 characters long. So what we've got in these little wiggly bits, it's a very these curly braces. I think this first one is going to correspond to minimum length. Here, we don't have a second number. But if this first number we think, well, it's 8, and that's the same as our min length. Cool. What do we think we could put here? What do you think the second number, if we put another number in there, might be? The 8, sort of a minimum number. What might the number on the other side of this be? Yeah, I think this is true. You know, we think that's probably going to be maximum length, isn't it? Yeah. And we're not going to set a maximum length because, like, you can use as many as you want. Yeah. I don't know what the default is, but longer passwords tend to be a bit more secure by rule. So let's go ahead and let people. I'm not going to set a minimum length. Y'all can have as many as you want. People are asking if 16 is 16 the default? Oh, cool. So Ramona's saying, yep, alphanumeric. So A to Z and 0 through 9. Oh, I'm not sick. It's just leftover from being sick. And then we've got a minimum of 8 characters. We're not going to set a maximum. Oh. And look at this error we've got. This error is really cool. And what this error is saying is, hey, you've got some redundancy here. In the real world, this HTML would work, but here it's saying that regular expression sets your minimum length. You don't need to say it twice. Let's get rid of it. Challenge everything. Cool. It's just telling us, hey, if you want to donate, that's cool. Y'all don't spend any money you don't have, but if you've got it, it's a nice place to donate. So let's go to the next part of our registration form. And this is going to ask for the type of account the user's doing. So that means we're going to take, when we say the next part of our registration form, we've been hanging out in this first field set. We're just going to drop on down to that next field set. It's going to be super chill. We're going to add 3 label elements. And remember what we just did last time? Ooh, so someone's asking, what's going to happen if we don't set a maximum length? I think the answer to that is going to be, I'm just searching. Default maximum length password type HTML. Of course, we've come to MDN because I am nice and lazy. Let's see if we can find that real fast. So minimum, I'm not seeing a maximum number of characters. If no, haha, let me come and get it. Let's look at this together, yeah? Let's make this a little bit bigger. So when we don't know, let's look it up. And I have no idea what the default maximum length for characters is. So we're on the MDN for input type equals password. Yeah. We're going to come down to maximum length. So maximum number of characters, which are UTF-16 code units. So that's the type of characters we can pass in. This has to be more than 0. So the maximum has to be more than 0. That makes sense. But it says if no max length is specified, or if you get an invalid value. So if I say the max length is set to the unicorn emoji, that's an invalid value. That's not going to work. The password field has no maximum length. We've got somebody asking, can I put in 255? I think you might be able to pass just as many as you want. Yeah. So thank you very much for that extremely good question. I had to look that. Ramon is backing me up and saying, I don't think there's a maximum. You could go ahead and just copy and paste all of. I'm trying to think of a famous poem, and I can't think of a famous poem early on a Monday. Oh gosh, that's a really nice conversation question. Y'all, what do you have a favorite poem? Can you let me know what it is? This is so I can hang out and read poetry when I should be studying. So we're going to add 3 label elements. And as a deeply lazy person, how are we going to do this? Oh, somebody's saying their favorite poem is The Zen of Python. And Python is a programming language as well. These are going to be formatted really weird, but it'll get fixed in the next one, yeah? Oh, the second line in the MDN doc states the max limit. Oh, I did not read the important parts, did I? Oh, the input will fail constraint validation if the length of the text entered in the field is greater than the max length UTF-16 code units long. What is UTF? Wait, no. I adore you. This is a fantastic question, but this is also a little bit of a rabbit hole. How much? So UTF-16 code units is how many characters we can have. And you might say, oh, so I can have 16 units. UTF is greater than max length 16 UTF-16 code units long. I think that is here. So hang on. Yeah, let's talk about this for a second. Yeah. So, and this means you all have more homework to do on your own. So ha ha ha. Wait, let's submit this really fast just so we get the credit for it. Yeah. So UTF-16 being the maximum limit sounds like, oh, okay, I can only have 16 characters. And I say, no. UTF-16 is a way to encode characters. So this is a way to communicate and ingest Unicode characters. And I want to go super fast because we're going to go into kind of a rabbit hole, aren't we? Unicode is a way to store and share letters. And it's not just A to Z. And when we say letters, we mean Japanese characters. We mean Arabic characters. We mean emoji. We mean wingdings, which are a weird font. Yeah. And UTF-16 is a way to encode that. That's a way to communicate that. So when we say the maximum number of characters you can have in a password is UTF-16, we don't mean you can only have 16 characters. We mean that you cannot exceed the amount of information this encoding needs. And I think that's more than 1,000,000 characters, isn't it? Where is it? Please show me. So yeah. Oh, somebody found it in the chat. I think you were absolutely right. Where'd you go? So 1,112,064 characters. Looks like that might be your maximum number of characters you can put in a password. So if your favorite poem is like an epic poem, so if your favorite poem is Gilgamesh, maybe you can't put the whole thing. So cool. I just wanted to preview. Unicode are the ways we tend to handle characters on the web. There's different kinds, like versions. Will worry, and that UTF-16 is a way we sort of encode those. The way we deal with those characters on the web. Sorry, you all are super chill. Wait, no, you all are asking even better questions. And we're going into really, really complicated details about UTF. I love this, but let's take that conversation into the Discord or into the forum. Yeah, just to be mean. So users will be allowed to choose a business or personal account. You all are so patient with me saying, yeah, let's dive into. Nope, we're going to jump back out. So personal account. You know what? It hasn't told us to do the text yet, has it? I'm just continuing to be rubbish. And you all are so patient to come on this weird journey with me. So add one input. And our type is going to be radio. You say, yes, that's super weird. Why radio? Well, radio used to have these big buttons back in the day, like physical radios. And we a lot of the tech terms we use kind of got stuck with old-fashioned text. You know how the save icon on a lot of software is a floppy disk. I'm going to ask a question, and this is going to make me feel very, very old. Who here is young enough where you've never used a physical square disk on a computer? And for my fellow old people, who here remembers the big floppy disk, the big black one, the big 5-inch ones? So who here is too young to have ever used a floppy disk? And who here is old like me and remembers the giant ones? But what we've done here is we're going to be adding some, and as soon as we set our input type, we've got these. And right now we're able to push both. I don't know if we're going to want both. You can't have both a business and a personal. I'm not at the same time. So Rajesh, y'all are saying you've used like the big floppies or the little ones? It's just me being old on the internet. It's great. Where I was like, well, back in my day, we had, because like CD-ROMs aren't even a thing anymore, are they? Oh, cool. You are a sweetheart pretending you were. It's one of these things where your grandparents showed you. So you saw this, you use the small ones. Somebody's saying you still. Oof, the 8-inch floppies. Oh. And do you know? Yeah, this is going to be the oldest thing I do today. You young people don't know how good you have it because these days we use the. So these days we use these little tiny drives, right? This one is This one's a gigabyte. Somebody's pointing out that floppies back in the day were 1.44 megabytes. Right? Right? So you could put like 3 or 4 badly compressed images, right? Where you would have, y'all remember when it was insert next disk. When when CD-ROMs came out, they were a gift. Tunnel Rat saying, you know what? Vinyls came back, so you're anticipating the return of the floppy disks. I've got friends that work in some kinds of government jobs, and sometimes you'll have old devices, and the security means not just that you have to use floppy disk, but you have to use a brand new pack, a newly opened pack. So I've got friends who are just absolutely hoarding old school floppy disks. So we're going to add another label. We're just going to do one or two more of these. Y'all got me talking about being old, and this means you have more homework to do individually. And this one is going to be a checkbox. And you see that is automatically a text field. Yeah. And as soon as we change checkboxes like, babe, I know exactly what you want, we're going to go ahead and make that a checkbox. And you know what? The checkbox is going to be for our terms and conditions. So we're also going to set that to required. That's chill. Let's check the code. Everything's fine. Everything continues to be fine. So up here, let's look at our code. We put our text first and then our input device. And that's because we want to have our text and then the blank. And here we want to we want to reverse those. So we're going to put our text right after our input. So I'm going to add a little space. Do I need a space? It says add a space. Personal account. I'm going to come in here between the after the input element. Business account. You know what? What do lazy people like to do? We like to copy and paste. Yeah. And then I accept the terms and conditions. Add a space. Yeah. Ooh, Sunflare is like, hey, do you remember when you would get CD-ROMs or oh, no, this isn't even CD-ROMs. This is, hey, do you remember when AOL would send you their software on floppy? It just occurred to me that many of you would have been born after the whole AOL thing happened. Back in the day when everybody got online, it was everybody's internet provider back in the day was AOL, wasn't it? So we're going to do one more of these. We're going to switch to question answer, and then you are going to do the rest of this incredibly hard, incredibly weird thing as homework. But while I'm doing this, what happens when you get stuck? Talk to me about what happens when you get stuck on this. If you get stuck on step 45, where are you going to go for help? Or talk me through what are the steps you're going to go through if you get stuck? Yeah, I already know. I just want to know you know. I mean, maybe I'm a very old lady and I forgot what happens when you get stuck. So right now, I can select both of these buttons, and we only want to have one of them at a time. So we're going to let our website know that these are related. Yeah, that these are. Nikki is saying if you get stuck on step 45, you can go to step 46. And that is technically correct. Peeking ahead will show you the answers. But like you're not wrong. Go like Chrislynn's got you're after my heart. Head to forum or head to Discord. Or what's another thing we could do if we get out? Sherrod said MDN Docs. Sherrod's saying, oh, you know what? Sometimes there's a help button in free code. You could check that out. What? Yeah, so we've got the whole game. Ask a friend, go to MDN, look it up. So go on DuckDuckGo, go on Google, go on, does Bing still exist? And look it up. Yeah, we've got a bunch of options here. So what we're going to do is right now, we're letting our browser know that both of these radio buttons are related. They're both doing the same thing. And we use this using the name attribute. We're going to set the name to account type. And really what we're saying to the browser is, hey, these two radio buttons are asking the same question. So really, make it so you can only have one at a time. Yeah, that's super chill. We're going to check our code and we're just going to preview the next step. We're just going to look at this together. Ooh, Giannis is asking. Love this. This question's perfect. Look at you after my own heart. Shouldn't the checkbox inputs have a value attribute so the server can tell which one is checked when the form is committed? Yeah? Cool. Let's talk about this because this is a bigger question than I think you're asking. So Giannis is saying, oh, yeah, wait, not even the checkbox, the radio buttons. And this is really cool because this question is true for the checkbox and it's true for the radio buttons. Yeah? The value attribute is something we're going to learn about later in forms. But right now, if I fill out this information, I say Jess at rose.com for my email. And this is a very bad password. Don't use this password, but cookie123 is a password. And then I check these buttons and it's just going to send me to my server. It's going to send let's look at where we're sending this. It's going to send here to FCC registration form, this server. It's just going to send me a jumble of information. It's not even going to be labeled. It'll say Jess, and maybe somebody's password is Violet. Also, bad password. So maybe my name is Rose. Maybe I've used the password of Violet. Here, I've set the type as password, so it'll give me a hint. But how do I tell the answers apart? If they're similar, maybe somebody's first name is Jim and their last name is Bob. And I say, which one of these is your first name and which one of these is your last name? The value attribute is something we can set and it doesn't get shown to your user, but it means that it connects the answer to the value. And that means when the information gets sent to your server, I can set the value of my first name input. So the value is first name. And that way when it says first name equals Jim in the results, I say, oh yeah, this person's first name is Jim. That's chill. I get it. And that way it's especially valuable for the radio buttons because it's not really going to, otherwise I know someone has pushed this button and it's easy to lose track of what that is. It's super good. Ooh, Phaedrus is also asking, well, does the checkbox enable the form to be submitted only if checked? Because GDPR is going to be such an important thing to learn about. GDPR is the oh no, what does GDPR stand for? Regulatory. Let's find what GDPR stands for. So GDPR are I knew that. General Data Protection Regulation. So GDPR are the data rules for Europe. There's different data rules for different places, but GDPR has really some main rules. Thank you. Y'all are like General Data Protection Regulation. It's an embarrassing thing to forget. And this has rules to say, hey, you can't collect data on people unless they're informed. And you've got to forget their data when they ask for it. Yeah. And if they ask you, where did you get my data? You have to tell them. So I'm broadly very, very into GDPR because I'm a data weirdo. I don't want anybody to have my information if they don't need it. Maria's asking, are we going to learn about how to retrieve the data that was sent from the form on the server side? So I don't think we're going to learn a ton about that now, but we can talk about that. Yeah. So where does the data go when the user submits the form? This is such a good question. And this is something I always feel a little bit guilty about as a teacher. That's not true. I feel guilty all the time. It's the joy of being alive, isn't it? Because when we are teaching specific skills, sometimes we abstract away some of the complexity. And this complexity we're talking about right now, when I push go, where does my data go, is really important. And I think this gets a little bit complicated because we're going to have to talk about some things that we're probably not going to learn about in this sandbox environment. And first off, the idea of what is a server? Like, yikes, that's super hard, isn't it? Because a server is usually someone else's, but you can run your own. A server is another computer. And this server, this computer's job, your computer on your desktop, yeah, does a bunch of different things. Your computer does word processing, like text editing. It plays videos. It's sort of a general purpose party machine and work and work. But a server, I like to think of it as a waiter or a waitress. A server's main job is to get information and to give you information back. So when we talk about servers, I think it's really important in web development because when your user asks for your website, the way that happens is your user comes to your server and says, "May I have this website, please?" Or their browser says, "May I have this website, please?" And the server gives them the information that makes up that website. And it also takes information as well. So when a user submits a form, it goes to, let's find that, it goes to the form action. It's sending it to this server. It's sending it to this URL. And an address and a server are they're connected but conceptually different. Sorry, I don't want to hit you with too much stuff yet. But this means that generally speaking, when you are sending data to a server, there's going to be stuff that makes up your back end. So your front end is the stuff we're working on right now. That's your HTML, your CSS. Cool, cool, cool. Your back end are all of these moving parts that lets you send information to your users or get it. So the things we've got to use here are a server, and I think we probably need a database here too. Irvin is a sweetheart, and saying this in a much more concise way than I have. A server is going to process client requests. So I say, "Hey, I like this thing." And it says, "I got your request. Thanks, babe." And then fulfills those requests if you're allowed to have them. So server, like a waiter or waitress. If I am a teenager, if I'm an 8-year-old and I ask for a glass of wine at a restaurant, my server at my restaurant, my waitress will be like, "Yeah, absolutely not." And servers do some authentication as well. If I'm asking for something that I need a password for and I don't have a password, I say, "Hey, can I have that secret information?" Just like my waitress won't give me a glass of wine if I'm too young. Um, a server, if I say, "Hey, can I have that information? I don't have a password." It'll say, "No, no." So saying it processes client requests and delivers data to a client. Perfect way to say this. So we're not going to learn too explicitly about this, but looking at how does a server work might be a really good next step. And really, if you're taking this information, you're probably going to need a database as well. And databases are something we're not going to get too terribly into. Now, we should probably see if we can get a guest to come and talk about what is a database. It sounds like it would be a very, very useful thing. But there are different types of databases. So there are different philosophies for structuring data. And the database is really like a ledger book. That is a very old person way to describe that, isn't it? Because nobody uses checkbooks anyway, do we? A database is like, it's like a spreadsheet. I mean, technically, a spreadsheet is a database in many cases. Excel is. Never mind. I'm going down a philosophical rabbit hole. So it's like having a spreadsheet. And you can fill in that data, but you can also come back and get it and reference it when you need to. So super, super important to learn about servers and super important to learn about databases. But while we're just getting our head around CSS and HTML, I'm going to say, I want to preview. Servers exist and they're important. They're our waitress for taking orders, processing whether or not they're valid, and giving or taking information as they need. And databases are like a ledger or like a spreadsheet where you can build and store and manipulate information. Ooh, how important is method in forms? So, of course, the first thing I'm going to do is get you MDN method forms. It's pretty important. So let me find method. I'm just getting the documentation because I am going to have to. There we are. Here we go. Oh, you know what? I can just move this so we're looking at the documentation. That's what we want, isn't it? So this is challenging because this is some of the complexity I was kind of looking to avoid. But it's really important to preview this. So the method chooses the HTTP method to submit the form with. And this is a protocol, HTTP hypertext transfer. I knew that. The hypertext transfer protocol. And the hypertext transfer protocol is protocol here just means sort of the rules or the process. The HTTP is the process through which we send HTML documents. This is the way that your user's browser asks for and receives your website. And the reason I was looking to kind of avoid this while we're still learning is this is a rabbit hole. And rabbit holes are really exciting in learning. And it's really easy to get distracted, which is a bit of a shame. Because when we say, oh, cool, to talk about method, we need to talk about HTTP. And then as soon as we get to HTTP, we say, well, you know what? To understand HTTP, we need to learn about clients and servers, which we kind of talked about a little bit. A client sort of like somebody in your restaurant, and a server's like your waiter or your waitress saying, oh, here you go. Here's what's going on. So hypertext transfer protocol is the process, the way, really the rules of the dance that we transmit hypermedia documents like HTML. And method is choosing where am I? Method is choosing the methods, the HTTP method you're using. So here are some security guidelines. It is important. But if it's not me being super mean, I might say it's important. I'm super happy for us to have a conversation about this in the forum or in the Discord, but I don't want to get this too super complex now. Yeah. So it's valuable. We can post something, and these are the post and get. These are HTTP protocols. These are our processes through which we can transfer information using HTTP. And post means, hey, send that form data in. And get is going to append that. So that's going to add extra information. I'm sorry, that's super complicated, isn't it? Yeah, I hope that I've explained, sort of previewed that in a gentle way that isn't going to get too super complicated for us. It's uh, we've got somebody saying, "Hey," and this is I'm so sorry. I say this all the time because I'm mean. This is just going to make sense the more you touch it and the more you do reading. So server-side programming. Oh no, I was just like such a good point, and then I'm like, oh no, do we have to explain server-side programming? We'll learn about this later on. I promise. So it is important. Not quite yet though. Oh, Rajesh, you're saying you're stuck at step 26? I would love to go back and talk about something that's going to feel a little bit less complicated. Let's go ahead and come back here. Where is, which step are we on now? Let's go to the menu, the curriculum. You point out that server-side programming and backend mostly mean the same thing. It's like, oh, instead of saying server-side, I should have said backend. Usually server side and backend mean the same thing. Anytime I say a term that sounds weird, you come back and fuss at me, y'all, okay? You say, "Oh, Jess, you said top level domain. What is that?" Always come fuss at me. I'm gonna come all the way down and oh, you are Jess, are you cheating? You're like, I'm stuck on the very next step. But let's go ahead. Let's do this one. And if anybody has any questions while I'm doing this one, I'll go ahead and answer that. But after that, I might escape and get some coffee. Yeah. No, these are such good questions. I was like, oh, I'm glad I'm not answering any more big conceptual questions. And then Nikki's got one that we're going to look at next, which is a really good question. I'm going to answer that in a really reductive way. Let's do 26. So we're cool. So to finish up, we're going to link to the text terms and conditions. Okay. So this has asked us to do something in a weird way. Right. Irvin. After my own heart. We're going to use that anchor tag we learned about. And the ref attribute, remember, anchor, think of it as an anchor, big heavy thing. I think of the ref attribute as where we're throwing that anchor, where the chain leads to. So let's go ahead and see if I can't remember how to do that. Let's start it. A for anchor, ref for where we're throwing it. And then terms and conditions is going to be our anchor text. We still need to close our anchor tag with an A. We're going to take this link right here. I gotcha. And that's where our link is going to be pointed. That's where that link is going to throw us. Fabulous. I think this should pass. But this asked this in a way where it's going to make you do a lot of logic. Say, make the text, terms, and conditions a link that goes here. It's a little bit of a conceptual jump, isn't it? We're going to check our code. Everything's fine. Although if y'all are like, show me number 27, I won't. I won't because I'm mean. Also, because this is super hard and I want to make you all do the hard stuff on your own. Well, that's the same reason, isn't it? Because I'm mean. So HTTP, remember we just learned about that hypertext transfer protocol, and we didn't learn about it in detail. We just sort of previewed, hey, HTTP exists. This is a way we can transfer information. This is a protocol. This is a series of rules. And Nikki points out, well, Jess, HTTP, that exists. HTTPS, I see this sometimes. I see HTTPS. What's the deal with that? And my coding adventure points out that, okay, HTTP is just a transfer where you're kind of throwing information. It's like if I wrote something on a ball. I wrote my password, hopefully not my password. I wrote my email address on a big rubber ball with a pen, and then I'm just throwing that across the room to somebody else. Anybody in the room can say, Jess, is that your email address written on the ball? It's a lot easier to intercept that. If somebody else grabbed the ball, they said, "Ah, I got your email address." Whereas HTTPS adds a layer of security. So it's an encrypted protocol. And that means I take my so when I'm throwing it, when I'm passing it to someone, when I post it to someone, I'm getting a hollow ball and I'm opening it up and I'm putting it inside and I'm closing it and throwing it. And only somebody who knows how to open it back up can get that information. That's a terrible metaphor, and you all are very patient with me. I'm going to come up with a better metaphor for HTTP and HTTPS. You all are perfect and incomparable. Number 26 was an especially weird one the way they asked, isn't it? And excitingly, the rest of these are going to be super hard. Don't get discouraged if these seem hard and weird. I personally think this is the hardest unit. But if you get stuck, come on over to the forum, come on over to the Discord. Everything's going to be fine. Your homework is going to be brutal. Are you ready? Y'all log on every day just for me to be mean to you, and I really appreciate it. So we're going to come down to our responsive web design. We've done building a cat photo app, building a cafe menu, colored. And if you haven't finished these, go ahead and finish these before moving on to finishing forms. But we've done Almost half. I'm going to lovingly and gently ask if you can go ahead and try and finish the rest of these. Let's oh, the last couple of them are CSS. This is just going to be styling. This is going to be relaxed. So if you can, your homework is going to be to go ahead and finish up through step 57. So finish the HTML forms project. And I bet money that you know what your most important homework is. So finish this unit if you can, when you get a second, all chill. But your most important homework is if it's morning or if it's the afternoon for you, please try and have the easiest possible day. Go like it's been a stressful week, right? It's only Monday, but it's been a stressful year. It's only January. It's been a stressful couple of years, right? So your big homework is to be as gentle and lovely to yourself as you can. Yeah. And then if you get a chance, learn these HTML forms. If you fall behind in the boot camp, that's super okay. These videos will always be on YouTube. They're not going anywhere. And your progress on Free Code Camp isn't going to go away. I love getting to learn with you, but if you had to take a break and come back, that's chill. It's not going anywhere. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Please have the easiest, because that's your most important homework, have the easiest morning or afternoon, or if it's the middle of the night, have the easiest day tomorrow. I'm going to chat to you all tomorrow. And tomorrow, let's collapse this. We're going to be taking a look at the survey form project. This is a required These other ones are for your you should do them, but you don't have to. Do you have to do them to get your certification? A survey form project. We're going to start looking at this project together tomorrow. We're not going to finish it because we're mean, but this is a required one to get it done. Yeah, I'm going to let you go. Please have the easiest time, and I will chat to you soon. Bye.